Hey, Richard, where did you stash the gifts? I've searched every corner of the house, but they seem to have vanished. The moment I brought up the presents, I noticed a flicker of anxiety on Richard's face. My curiosity piqued. I asked, "What did you do with them, Richard?" With a hesitant sigh, he confessed, "I sold them." I was taken aback. "Why on earth would you sell the gifts?" He explained, "I needed the money, and honestly, those gifts wouldn't have been useful to you anyway." I was incredulous. "Are you serious?" "Those gifts were essential for our budget, especially the baby's needs." Richard shrugged off my concerns. "Why are you making such a fuss over something so trivial? They were given to me by my parents, so I can do whatever I want with them. They're mine." Allow me to introduce myself. I'm Laura Smith, a 31-year-old nurse married to Richard, a businessman who owns fishery farms, where we catch and distribute fish. Life was good at first. Richard's vibrant spirit filled our days, but everything changed when his business faced a devastating blow. A storm capsized the ship carrying fish from his farm. As a small business owner, this setback hit him hard, plunging him into a deep sadness. I tried my best to support him emotionally, but my savings couldn't make a dent in his troubles. Despite my demanding job, I cooked his favorite meals and took him out to his favorite places, hoping to lift his spirits. For weeks, he lost himself in video games, ignoring his responsibilities at home. I worked long hours and managed the household, even on my days off, while he showed no willingness to help, which left me feeling frustrated. I understood the struggles of running a business, but I believed it was vital to share the burden of recovery. I might not be a business expert, but I knew that dwelling on setbacks wouldn't help us move forward. Instead, we needed to find solutions and improve efficiency. I gave Richard the space he needed to grieve for about a month before I finally found the courage to speak up. "Richard, I know you've been down since the setback, but maybe it's time to start looking forward. We need to find solutions rather than stay stuck in the past. Constant sadness could only make things worse." As I anticipated, he reacted defensively, accusing me of being insensitive and selfish for focusing on business rather than offering emotional support. Nevertheless, I pressed on. "Sweetheart, I may come off as blunt, but I genuinely believe that clinging to this loss is hurting your business. I care about you, and I want nothing but success for you because I love you." Richard didn't take it well. He chose to retreat into his video games, shutting me out with his headphones. It took over a month for him to return to his usual routine, and I felt a wave of relief as things began to normalize. However, I noticed a shift in his habits. He started coming home at odd hours, sometimes past midnight, sometimes in the morning, and occasionally not at all. When I confronted him about his erratic schedule, he dismissed me with a sarcastic remark, "Businessmen don't have shifts, you know, we control our time." His arrogance left me questioning the true state of affairs. Months passed, and another setback hit Richard. This time, though, he didn't fall into despair. The spark of happiness in him had dimmed, replaced by an ever-present sense of stress and urgency. One day, he approached me, asking for financial help with his business. Surprised by his sudden request, I reminded him of my own financial struggles, having managed the household expenses during his business downturn. My reply clearly displeased him. He wore a look of disdain. A pang of guilt hit me, making me reconsider my stance. I reflected on my previous carefree life in my 50s, where I had indulged in travel and adventure, spending nearly all my savings. Perhaps it was time to make a sacrifice for my husband. As a couple, supporting each other was paramount. So, I decided to dip into my savings for a planned trip to Hawaii, hoping it would help stabilize Richard's business. Sadly, the hoped-for improvement never came. In the midst of all this, I discovered I was pregnant, a moment of pure joy. Yet, Richard's reaction was overshadowed by concern, leaving me confused about what the future held for us. Despite my excitement about the pregnancy, Richard's worry about providing a stable life for our baby overshadowed my joy. I tried to reassure him, insisting that the timing was just right. Yet, Richard remained apprehensive, attributing his fears to typical first-time parent jitters. I believed that with time, his worries would ease. Honestly, though, I shared some of his concerns about his inconsistent income. Supporting a family on a single income stream felt daunting, and while I couldn't rely solely on my earnings, I hoped that once Richard became a father, he would embrace his responsibilities, and our situation would improve. Regrettably, instead of becoming more responsible, Richard seemed increasingly careless with each passing day. Borrowing money became a common occurrence, each time for urgent and often questionable reasons, whether to pay his employees or to invest in a new type of fish. I felt frustrated but held back from making any drastic moves, knowing I needed to focus on the baby. I started to minimize my interactions with him, concentrating on my own well-being and that of our child. Initially, I didn't mind helping him, but his pleas soon morphed from polite requests into outright demands. What used to be sincere asks turned into direct commands like, "Laura, I need you to send me $1,000 right away." I tried to understand the reasons behind his growing financial needs, but they always led back to accumulating debt from small business loans with rising interest rates. Refusing his requests sparked immature outbursts from him, door slamming, cutlery rattling, and disdainful looks became the norm until I eventually relented. Richard's demeanor became more unbearable, especially during my pregnancy's last 6 months. My in-laws threw a baby shower for us, and I was grateful for their support. When I received thoughtful gifts from them, their friends, and family, it provided a much-needed break from the months of tension and worry. Receiving those generous gifts filled me with joy, knowing they would provide us with all the essentials our baby would need in those first months. With our tight budget, acquiring these necessities would have been a significant burden. However, the next morning, I was taken aback to find the living room empty, with no gifts in sight. Thinking Richard might have moved them to the storeroom, I checked, but there was no sign of anything. When I called him, he didn't answer. Upon his return, I confronted Richard about the missing gifts. To my horror, he confessed he had sold them. Shocked, I asked him why he would do such a thing, and he coldly replied that the gifts were of no use to us. Heartbroken and frustrated, I explained how essential those items were for the baby: clothes, a crib, blankets, a stroller, and toiletries. I couldn't grasp why he would sell something so vital, especially given our tight financial situation. Richard remained indifferent and dismissive, insisting that because the gifts were given by my parents, he had the right to do whatever he wanted with them. I argued that those gifts were intended for our child, not for him to sell off for his own gain. As tears streamed down my face, I felt a deep sense of betrayal and helplessness. I begged him to understand that the gifts had saved us money we couldn't afford to waste again. Richard, however, remained unrepentant, insisting he would acquire everything we needed once the baby arrived. Skeptical, I challenged him, asking how he intended to do that without sufficient funds, but he brushed off the financial hurdles with an unsettling confidence. When his gaze dropped, a sudden realization hit me: he was short on cash. Rolling my eyes, I pressed him, "Where's the money from those gifts you sold?" "I don't have it," he replied, his tone sharp. "Then where did it go?" I demanded. "I invested it in my business," he defended. Frustration boiled over as I retorted, "Seriously, Richard, spare me the lectures. I'm done with this. You're a perpetual downer, complaining about every little setback." His defensiveness only fueled my anger. "What's your deal? You contribute nothing to the household expenses, barely lift a finger, and live off my earnings. Now you have the nerve to lecture me. Instead of helping, you just add to my burdens. If you're unhappy, why not just leave? I crave some peace in my own home. Being around you feels stifling. I'm too exhausted to argue any longer." Richard's behavior was becoming increasingly erratic. Holding back my frustration, I retreated to my room and slammed the door. Something was off with him. I couldn't shake the feeling that he was hiding something, perhaps even cheating or getting involved in something illegal. That night, driven by a mix of curiosity and dread, I decided to investigate. I secretly slipped a sleeping aid into Richard's soup, ensuring he would fall into a deep sleep. With him out cold, I used his fingerprints to unlock his phone, meticulously combing through his emails and messages. After an hour of searching, I finally uncovered a shocking truth. Expecting to find evidence of an affair, I was stunned to learn that Richard was tangled up in illegal drug dealings. The revelation hit me like a punch to the gut. It all started after his initial business setbacks, leading him to delve into the dark world of smuggling drugs through his fishing enterprise. Within the fishing community, there's an unspoken knowledge that illegal substances can be hidden within fish and meat cargo. I had been completely unaware of this murky side of his business. One email disclosed Richard's initial hesitations about entering this world, but the lure of quick cash proved too tempting to resist. The pressures from drug dealers seemed like a solution to his financial woes. He viewed it as a temporary fix to bounce back from his setbacks, but the allure of easy money drew him deeper into a perilous lifestyle. As his involvement intensified, he began to relish the effortless income, which fostered a newfound arrogance. This unexpected venture into criminality was the catalyst for Richard's downfall, steering him down a treacherous path. The situation worsened after a disastrous shipwreck that claimed both the fish and the drugs. Now, with drug dealers demanding compensation for their losses, Richard found himself trapped, forced to ensure the safe transport of their products. Hearing all of this during a conversation with a dealer, I as a nurse, couldn't bear to stay with someone engaged in such illegal activities. Having witnessed the devastation caused by drug abuse, I found it morally and ethically unacceptable to remain complicit. I carefully collected the evidence without leaving a trace of my tampering and returned his phone. Sleep eluded me that night. The following morning, while Richard was still asleep, I gathered my belongings and left, seeking refuge with a trusted friend and colleague. Fearful of reporting him to the police directly, I worried that exposing Richard's actions could implicate others. If he or his associates discovered my involvement, I could be in serious danger. I quickly contacted my colleague's cousin, who happened to be a lawyer. He advised me to report the information anonymously through a neutral inquiry. If my evidence was solid, the authorities could launch an investigation and apprehend those involved without linking me to it. I took his advice, being truthful, and shared all the evidence with the police anonymously. Meanwhile, when Richard awoke and noticed my absence, he misinterpreted the situation. He assumed I was upset about the gifts he had given me and texted me, expecting an apology and hoping I would return home. Ignoring his messages, I felt a sense of relief that he jumped to such conclusions. It bought me the time I needed to execute my plan without raising any suspicion. At 6 months pregnant, I grappled with emotional turmoil and fear. If Richard discovered my involvement, I worried he might harm me or the baby. I spent the week of the police investigation at my colleague's house for safety. After a week, my lawyer informed me that the police had verified my evidence, leading to criminal charges against Richard and several accomplices. Caught between relief and sadness over Richard's impending imprisonment, I received a call from him just a few hours later. My heart raced as I answered, anxious to see if he had pieced together the truth. In a trembling voice, he explained that he had been arrested on drug charges and insisted on his innocence. Despite his desperate plea for help, I felt an overwhelming wave of relief wash over me, knowing he had no idea of my involvement. Richard, I can't be linked to any illegal activities. Forget about bail. This is the end for us. I'm starting divorce proceedings. I hung up quickly, cutting off any chance for him to respond. This was part of the attorney's strategy. After his arrest, I could pursue a divorce that emphasized my separation from his criminal life. It was a calculated move designed to catch both Richard and his associates off guard, protecting my future. When Richard's parents learned of his arrest, they chose to distance themselves, unwilling to tarnish their family's reputation by supporting a criminal. This worked in my favor, allowing the divorce to proceed smoothly and without complications. Now, 2 years later, I've welcomed a beautiful baby girl into my life. Reflecting on those tumultuous days, I commend myself for trusting my instincts and cutting ties with Richard. Had I not, he might still be weighing us down financially, or worse, endangering both me and my child. Wrongdoers lack moral values, and the secret of my reporting him to the police remains between my co-worker, my lawyer, and me. Currently, I'm staying at my parents' house, receiving financial support for my daughter from Richard's parents until he's potentially released, though that seems unlikely anytime soon. Choosing the allure of quick cash may seem like an easy solution, but more often than not, it leads one down a perilous path filled with challenges and criminal repercussions.